Welcome back to LX News. From the facial expressions of Senator Kamala Harris to the fly who became the surprise star of the debate, of the night, of the country. I don't know. The VP showdown was still somehow less chaotic than the presidential debate that we saw not too long before.
I would concur.
Yeah.
Major issues like the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and racial injustice, they all took center stage Wednesday night. Political commentator and author Quentin Giles joins us now to discuss where the candidates stood on these issues and what lies ahead for future debates, if there's going to be any. Thank you, Mr. Giles, for coming on the show.
That
face says it all.
Thank you for having me. Right.
So, look, I know that Senator Harris, Vice President Pence, they had two wildly different tasks coming into this debate, but somehow I feel like Pence was in more of a hole that he had to climb out of, given the fact that we had that presidential debate that he had to do a lot of cleaning up for just 8 or 9 days prior. But then again, he is the head of the coronavirus task force, and of course, there's really a lot to defend there. So how do you think Mike Pence did specifically? We'll start with him.
That's such an interesting point that you bring up about him being the head of the coronavirus task force. I thought Mike Pence was very low energy. To be quite honest, there was only a few moments where he really perked up and gave, some good punches. I must admit, he gave some very good punches towards Kamala Harris. But he was very low energy, so much so that he didn't swat the fly that we all have been laughing about. The fly left him.
Yeah, he didn't punch
that's how low energy it was. That was my meter. That was Twitter's meter as well. But yeah, I thought he was a little low energy. And he really didn't do a good job of defending that record of being, the coronavirus task force head or what this administration has done.
Maybe they wanted a little low energy given the prior debate that had just taken place.
Maybe it was a little more civil. So maybe that is what they were going for.
Yeah.
But I think that when you have such a dynamic personality like Kamala Harris, you're going to have to, uptick it a little bit.
And I want to ask you, there was a conversation about social justice, racial injustice. VP Pence offered his condolences to Breonna Taylor's family, but also made sure to say that he does trust the justice system. What did you learn from their exchange about that, if anything?
Yeah, I think that Vice President Pence really missed the moment. A lot of times we've heard him and his boss, President Trump, talk about social justice and automatically tie it into, riots and destruction as opposed to the core issue. And I think that he really could have landed a moment by saying, I support peaceful protest. I support what people are doing. And I understand the environment that has created for the riots, right? And for the destruction. It is because there has been certain police brutality and misconduct. And so I think by automatically going to one of those talking points about rioting and looting, you really alienate yourself from some people that you kind of need to get. Based on the polls, the Trump-Pence administration is down right now. So I think he really missed an opportunity to kind of reach across the aisle.
Nonetheless, it's a strategy we've been seeing from the Trump campaign back in 2016 and right now, despite everything you're saying about the polling. But now this debate, though, it meant a lot when it comes to gender, too. Women, specifically women of color. I know that this is a race ultimately between two white men. But how is gender shaping these debates, even between the two white men here on the ticket?
Right. Gender was on full display last night, especially as Vice President Pence kept interrupting Kamala Harris. And shout out to Kamala Harris for standing in all of her power and reclaiming her time and saying that she is speaking. This is her moment to speak. I think those historic dynamics where women have often had to take the back seat were kind of on full display, where they weren't being heard, were on full display by the vice president. And I think it turned a lot of women off. Not only did he talk, over Kamala Harris, he was also talking over the moderator. And so that is not a good look, especially in this moment where we are pushing for equality and equity. Also, when, again, per the polls, his ticket is down with women and suburban white women, which were one of their main voters back in 2016. And so I think that whole gender dynamic, Pence kind of playing up the macho CEO and kind of over talking the woman, was on full display, and it just didn't land well.
But you know, Quentin, there are people out there who say all is fair in debates and debates,
Yeah.
and you're going to get interrupted. Is that not what Pence
Yeah.
was doing? Was he not just debating? That's not what you saw?
You know, all is fair in that, but I think we also have to understand the double standard that's there. Kamala Harris couldn't fully attack him as well because then she would have been labeled with that classic stereotype, the angry black woman, right? And whether you support her or not, I think if we all acknowledge that these stereotypes exist, then we can see the inequities and even that statement of saying, you know, all is fair in politics. It's really not. People have biases based off of other people's skins, based off of other people's experiences. And so I think that it's incumbent upon both politicians to understand the moment that we're in, especially in 2020, where you have racial reckoning, where you have women demanding to be treated as equal. As a politician, it is a smart move to understand what the culture and the country is. And so you both have to play into those things.
Got it. Okay, so we got to look ahead now, which is something everyone's trying to do, but it's a little hard because plans keep changing in terms of debates. So the second presidential debate, we don't know what's going on. There was an announcement that it was going to go virtual. The president not happy about that. So before I ask you what in God's name is going on here, let's listen to what he said.
No, I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. That's not what debating's all about. You sit behind a computer and do a debate. It's ridiculous. And then they cut you off whenever they want.
So, Quentin, let me ask you this. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, we're in pandemic land. Let's say there are no more presidential debates because of that. Does that have an impact on the outcome of the election?
You know, I don't think so. I think traditionally we expect these three debates from our presidential candidates, but this race has been pretty solid in the polls. And I think that people pretty much know where they're voting. I kind of reject the notion of an undecided voter. And I know it's kind of tantalizing for us to talk about that, especially being in the media and wanting to get people's reactions. But I really think that undecided voter that we often talk about, those people are trying to decide whether they want to vote or not, whether they want to participate or not. I don't know that there is a true voter that is really weighing the options between Trump and Biden. They're starkly different, and we know this.
Quentin Giles, thank you so much, sir. Thanks for the insight. We'll be right back, guys.
Thank you.